The rain hammered the windshield like 1,000 angry fists, each drop blurring the city lights into streaks of gold and crimson. Alexander Voss gripped the steering wheel of his matte black Maybach, knuckles white, jaw clenched, the kind of tension that had nothing to do with the storm outside. He was late for a board meeting that could make or break his empire, and the traffic on the 59th Street Bridge crawled like a wounded animal. Then came the knock, 3 sharp taps against the passenger window, frantic, desperate. A girl, no older than 20, stood soaked to the bone, her thin hoodie plastered to her skin, dark hair dripping into eyes wide with terror. She pressed a trembling hand to the glass and mouthed words he couldn't hear over the roar of the storm. He hesitated. 1 second. 2. Then she screamed, voice cracking through the rain, "Please, my child is sick." Alexander's foot slipped from the brake. The car lurched forward an inch before he slammed it back into park. Something in her voice, raw, animal, maternal, cut through the armor he'd worn for 15 years. He hit the window button. Cold rain slashed in, soaking the leather seat. "Get in," he barked, already regretting it. She yanked the door open and half fell inside, dripping, shivering, clutching a sodden backpack to her chest like a shield. "Hospital," she gasped. "St. Luke's." "My baby, he can't breathe." He didn't ask questions. The Maybach roared to life, tires spitting water as he cut across 3 lanes, horns blaring behind him. The girl, Lila, she said her name was, rocked back and forth, whispering to the backpack. "Hold on, Milo. We're almost there." Alexander glanced sideways. The bag moved. A tiny, labored whimper leaked out. His stomach dropped. Part 1, The Man Who Owned Everything But Time. Alexander Voss was 38, Forbes' youngest self-made billionaire 3 years running, and the loneliest man in Manhattan. His penthouse on Billionaire's Row had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over a city that feared him more than it loved him. He'd built Vostek from a garage in Queens, coding until his eyes bled, turning algorithms into weapons that predicted stock crashes before they happened. Now he owned towers, jets, and a private island no one was allowed to visit. But every night, the apartment was silent except for the hum of the smart fridge restocking itself. His mother had died when he was 12. His father drank himself into a coma by 15. Foster homes taught him trust was a liability. The only photo he kept was a faded Polaroid of a 6-year-old Alex holding a toy robot, smiling like the world hadn't already broken him. He hadn't taken a day off in 4 years. His assistant scheduled his bowel movements. The board called him the Machine. Women threw themselves at him, models, heiresses, influencers with teeth too white, but he saw the calculus in their eyes. How much of him can I own? So he stopped looking. Tonight, the quarterly earnings call had run long. A Chinese conglomerate was trying to poach his AI division. He'd crushed them with a single sentence, "Offer stands at $1.2 billion. Take it or I bury you." Then he'd walked out, tie loosened, soul heavier than the briefcase in his hand. The rain had started as a drizzle when he left the office. By the time he hit the bridge, it was a monsoon. He was replaying the call in his head. Did I miss something? Will they retaliate? When Lila knocked. Part 2, The Girl Who Had Nothing But Hope. Lila Morales was 20, a barista at a Brooklyn diner that smelled of burnt coffee and regret. She'd grown up in the South Bronx, raised by a grandmother who worked double shifts as a cleaner until her hands bled. Lila had dreams once: art school, a studio with north-facing windows, paintings that made people cry. Then Milo happened. She'd been 17, in love with a boy who promised her the moon and left her with a positive pregnancy test and a bus ticket to nowhere. Her grandmother died 3 months after Milo was born. The diner hired her because she could carry 3 plates in one hand and smile through the pain. Milo was 2 now, all curls and dimples, with lungs that betrayed him every winter. Asthma, the doctors said. The good inhalers cost $300 each. Her insurance laughed. She'd been saving tips in a coffee tin under her bed, $1.87 and change, when Milo woke up wheezing at 2 a.m. By 3, his lips were blue. The ambulance wouldn't come without payment up front. So she'd bundled him in every blanket she owned, stuffed him in the backpack to keep him warm, and ran into the storm. She'd flagged down 6 cars. All sped past. The 7th was the Maybach. Part 3, The Ride. The hospital was 12 minutes away with no traffic. Tonight, it might as well have been 12 hours. Alexander wove through gridlock like a shark through minnows, hazard lights blinking. Lila clutched the backpack, whispering Spanish prayers her grandmother taught her. "Talk to me," Alexander said, voice rough. "Keep him awake." "He likes trucks," Lila stammered. "Red ones. He calls them camions." Alexander flicked on the interior lights. The backpack unzipped just enough to reveal a tiny face, flushed and slick with sweat. Milo's eyes fluttered. "Twuck," he rasped, pointing at the dashboard with a finger no bigger than a matchstick. Alexander's throat closed. He slammed the heel of his hand into the horn, forcing a delivery van to swerve. "Almost there, buddy. Red truck's coming." Lila sobbed. "I can't lose him. He's all I have." Alexander didn't answer. He was calculating traffic patterns, side streets, the probability of a cop pulling him over. Then he saw the alley behind the diner on 3rd, narrow, one way, but it shaved off 4 blocks. He took it at 60 miles per hour, tires screaming. A dumpster loomed. He yanked the wheel. The Maybach fishtailed, mirror shearing off against brick. They burst onto Roosevelt Drive. St. Luke's glowed ahead like a beacon. Part 4, The ER. The automatic doors whooshed open. Alexander carried the backpack. Milo was too heavy for Lila now, her legs shaking. Nurses swarmed. "Pediatric code blue," someone shouted. They whisked Milo away on a gurney, oxygen mask dwarfing his face. Lila collapsed against Alexander, fists clutching his soaked lapels. "Don't leave," she whispered. "Please." He should have. He had a board meeting. A merger. A life that didn't include waiting rooms with cracked linoleum and the smell of bleach. Instead, he guided her to a plastic chair and sat beside her, suit ruined, shoes squelching. Hours passed. A doctor finally emerged. "He's stable. The albuterol worked. We'll keep him overnight for observation." Lila buried her face in her hands and cried, not pretty tears, but ugly, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Alexander stared at the floor, something cracking open in his chest he hadn't felt since he was 12. Part 5, The Bill. Morning came gray and drizzling. Lila stood at the billing counter, counting crumpled singles and coins. The clerk's face was kind but firm. $4, $200 for the ER visit and meds. We can set up a payment plan. I have $87, Lila said, voice small. Alexander appeared behind her, credit card already in hand. Put it on this. Lila spun. No. I can't. You can and you will. His tone left no room for argument. The clerk swiped. Declined. Insufficient funds. Alexander frowned, his black card had a $2 million limit. Then he remembered, he'd moved everything into a new offshore account for the merger. This card was linked to his personal checking. $3,400. Not enough. He stared at the machine like it had betrayed him. The clerk shifted awkwardly. Lila's eyes filled again. Sir, the clerk said, we can hold the discharge until. Give me 5 minutes. Alexander stepped into the hallway, dialed his CFO. Transfer $100,000 to my personal account. Now. Alex, it's 6 a.m. Do it. The money hit. He paid the bill, plus a deposit for Milo's inhalers for the next year. Lila tried to protest. He cut her off. Consider it hazard pay for saving my soul. Part 6, The Offer. Milo was discharged by noon, bundled in a hospital blanket, clutching a red matchbox truck a nurse had found. Alexander drove them home, to a walk-up in Mott Haven with peeling paint and a super who smelled of gin. Lila hesitated at the door. You've done too much. Alexander looked at the stairs, the flickering hallway light, the graffiti on the walls. Then at Milo, asleep against his shoulder, trusting him completely. Come work for me. Lila blinked. I serve coffee. I need someone who can handle chaos. You flagged down a stranger in a storm and didn't flinch when he drove like a maniac. That's executive material. She laughed, a broken sound. You're insane. Probably. Start Monday, $80,000, full benefits, childcare. Milo comes with you. Part 7, The Transformation. Lila started as Alexander's chaos coordinator. Her desk was a corner of his office with a playpen for Milo. She organized his schedule, charmed hostile investors, and taught him how to make mac and cheese without burning it. Alexander discovered he liked the sound of a toddler's laughter in a room that used to echo with silence. He learned Milo's favorite song, Las Mananitas, and sang it off-key every birthday. He fired the board member who called Lila the help. 6 months in, Vostek launched a non-profit, Breathe Easy, providing inhalers to kids in underserved neighborhoods. Lila ran it. Alexander funded it. The first shipment went to the South Bronx clinic where Milo was born. Part 8, The Reckoning. A year later, the merger collapsed. The Chinese conglomerate leaked doctored emails claiming Alexander had bribed officials. Stock plummeted 40%. The board demanded his resignation. He stood in the penthouse, city lights mocking him through the glass. For the first time, he was scared. Lila found him there at 3 a.m., Milo asleep in the guest room. You taught me to fight for what matters, she said. Now fight for yourself. She rallied the employees. Coders who'd been with him since the garage. Janitors who'd seen him eat cold pizza at 4 a.m. They leaked the real emails, sued for defamation, and won. The stock recovered. Alexander kept his company, and his family. Epilogue, The Red Truck. 5 years later, Alexander stood in Central Park, watching Milo, now 7, race a remote-control red truck across the grass. Lila laughed beside him, pregnant with their daughter, hand on her belly. He no longer owned the penthouse. They'd moved to a brownstone in Brooklyn with a backyard and a dog named Pickles. His net worth was half what it once was. He'd poured billions into Breathe Easy and scholarships for kids like Lila. He didn't care. Milo ran up, breathless. Dad, can we get ice cream? Alexander ruffled his curls. Only if Mom says yes. Lila rolled her eyes. You're both spoiled. As they walked to the truck, the red truck, now a restored '67 Chevy with a booster seat in the back, Alexander looked at the sky. No rain today. Just sunlight, warm and forgiving. He'd stopped his car in a storm once. And the world knocked.